A beautiful day here in Wesel, Germany, and we want to test out those two here foldables, the Vivo X Fold 5 against the Huawei Pura X. And yes, Timmy is also on board here, and here you can see the specifications of the camera setup. On paper it seems to be that the Vivo has an advantage with larger sensors, but both feature only a triple lens setup with a periscope zoom, at least a periscope zoom on the Vivo. I don't think it's a periscope zoom on the Huawei. And yeah, they have of course also inner front-facing video cameras, but they are not the best, not the greatest, and only the Huawei supports 4K video recording on those, on this, because it only has one, where we have two on the Vivo. So I think we start off with the front-facing video. 1080p 30 frames per second on the front-facing camera of the Vivo X Fold 5. HDR, okay, but not the greatest, and 1080p footage that last time I checked it out looked like 720p upscale, so it's not very good here on the Vivo X Fold 5. Nevertheless, what do you think about this one here? They should have gotten stabilization right, do they? Or is it shaky like on all the other Vivo phones, even flagships? So what do you think about the Vivo X Fold 5 here? The inner front-facing camera of the Pura X records in 4K 30 frames per second. Seems to have maybe a bit tiny better HDR, at least on screen. We'll check that out, of course, side by side. We have zoom options here. This is the wide option. Then there's a 1x option. It's not a huge difference, but I prefer the wide option here. What do you think about stabilization, about colors, and about the sharpness of this video in 4K 30 frames per second? How does it compete against the Vivo X Fold 5 running in the same pace here, and how are the transitions from bright to non-bright areas? I think the Pura is doing a better job here in the front-facing department. What do you think about this one here? Even though it has a smaller kind of sensor and smaller kind of megapixels, it can upscale probably to record 4K. So what do you think about this here? Now, main camera footage on both here side by side. I have the microphone plugged in, my external mic plugged into the Pura X, because it just sounds better. I don't have to post-edit it so much. This is the main camera sensor on both. On paper, it seems that they have the same sensor size, but are they also very good at background blur? Both feature the same kind of focal length. So what do you think? Which one is performing better in terms of stabilization, colors, and so on? Also, when I turn around here with the HDR. So what do you think about this one here? You can also switch to the ultra wide angle, 4K 30 frames per second recording. Let's do it on the Vivo first. This is the ultra wide angle. It's a bit wider, I think, than on the Huawei, you see. And this is the one on the Huawei. So which one is performing a little bit better here? Now let's go to the sun here as well. I think the Huawei has some issues there with sun flares and sunglass. This was an issue that I noticed early on the Pura X, that the glass was like a little bit weak there. So what do you think about this one here? And now we want to perform a little zoom test as well, to zoom in on the donkey, which is the mascot of Wesel. So this is the ultra wide angle, and you can see I was wrong. The Huawei is much wider than the Vivo here on this occasion. Let's go to directly 2x, which switches lenses and crops into the main. It's a bit closer up on the Huawei, so maybe they're using still 27mm instead of 24. Let's go to 3 and 3.5 times. Let's go to 10x here on the Vivo and 5x on the Huawei. And let's go in on 10x as well on the Huawei. The Huawei can record at 4K, but the sensor is only 8 megapixels. So yeah, the background blur you see already. And I think the nicer colors on the Vivo. So the more you zoom in, now 15 times is the max here. I think 10x is the max on the Huawei. But let's go back to 1x and 10x. Which one is performing better? And let's go back to the ultra wide angle on both to see which one has a smoother animation. Maybe the Vivo a bit faster, the Huawei a bit nicer. Let's go directly to 3x and 3.5 and back and back. Which one is performing better in your opinion? I think we don't have to talk about the selfie front camera video performance. It's a huge win for the Huawei. Let's go directly to the main camera performance, and here one can see a similar thing that we saw already in the photos, or that we will see in the photos in a second. It's a much more overprocessed, much more sharpened up look on the Vivo in comparison to the Huawei. So it is much sharper, much more over sharpened kind of look, where the Huawei is looking much more natural in this regard. So in terms of video performance, I think the Huawei is doing better, except for the zoom performance there. I think the Vivo is doing a slightly bit better than the Huawei. What do you think? We check out both of them in various different conditions. First, this daylight condition, where we see the difference in HDR processing, colors, and also how they handle this scene of high contrast. And you can see the X Fold 5 is dimming everything down, making everything a little bit darker looking than it actually was. The Huawei is pretty realistic with what I saw with my own eyes, especially the green grass and almost like overblown green grass that we see here. In terms of detail levels, you can clearly see the over sharpening that is happening on the Vivo. It is not only natural sharpness that is happening here, it is over sharpening. And we see some other examples where we can clearly see that the Vivo is overdoing it in terms of sharpness here. And what you can clearly see as well is that the lens on the Vivo seems not to be the best. You can see that here the Huawei is not doing this over sharpening. It's a bit like on the brighter side for sure, and almost like clipping. But when you go to the far left side, for example, this here, and compare it with the very, very soft, even though it was like in the center so over sharpened look that we have on the Vivo here, it's definitely a better lens and sensor combination that we can clearly see on the Huawei Pura X, where the X Fold 5 tries to compensate its deficits of the lens, maybe even sensor. I don't think so much about the sensor, but about the lens for sure, with a little bit over processing. And when we take a look at the telezoom lens, both taking a portrait shot, the X Fold 5 is cropping into 85mm, where the Pura X has a native 84mm. Very similar there from the colors of the main object here, the donkey. But we have a little bit of a difference, a bit more warmish kind of reddish color here, a bit more yellowish kind of color in the background that you can see. Both struggle a little bit with the bokeh there, especially on the donkey. It's more apparent on the Huawei and a little bit less apparent because it is softer all over the place here on the Vivo. So the Huawei seems to be a bit more sharpened up there in that matter. Bokeh level on both pretty fine. Both were set to f4. I think there's a little bit overblown highlights going on the Vivo, but that's it basically. And yeah, a bit more contrasty look is here in the background there. The blacks are a bit blacker, a bit darker than the one on the Pura. Then we take close-up shots. I forgot that we can also try it 3x at the Pura X, which is 72mm, cropping in from the main camera sensor, but this is nothing that I would recommend because it's getting softer and the bokeh issues will be a little bit more. Let's take a look at macro shots. Macro shots are utilizing on the Vivo X Fold the 3x telezoom, so 70mm, and you get way nicer macro shots with this. But in terms of detail levels, the main camera sensors used on the Huawei Pura X for this, it's not much of a difference in terms of if you want to have details for macro shots, but it's just looking a bit nicer because of the background compression and a different field of view on the Vivo. So macros is definitely a win for the Vivo. Yes, you can try it with the 84mm, but you know it's just cropping from the main and looks ugly. Then selfies here a bit wider on the X Fold 5, I think, or maybe the same width, so just a different kind of angle. But what we can clearly see, both also nice with the bokeh, what we can clearly see is here a bit more yellowish kind of face on the X Fold 5, so it's trying to make my face look a little bit better. But you can also see the overblown highlights there, which we don't have so much on the Huawei. When we take a look at the zoom level here, at the 100% view zoom, you can see that it's much smoother, much more artificial looking on the Vivo. The Huawei is definitely better here for the front-facing camera. Both handle the cutouts quite nicely, you can see both having no issues with the cutouts. Maybe a little bit more cutout there on the Huawei. When it comes to the ultra-wide angle, we have in very surprising fashion here a wider field of view on the Pura X, a brighter picture, again a duller, like a completely different day kind of picture on the X Fold 5. Maybe due to too much processing, I'm not sure. When we take a look at the detail levels, however, I'm shocked to see it's quite soft on the Vivo, in comparison to the Huawei, which is doing much better. The Huawei is definitely sharpening things up, maybe it's slightly a bit over sharpened at one position, but it's not as over sharpened as I saw on the main camera sensor of the Vivo, to be completely honest. And it's very soft all over the place on the Vivo, and when we go to the far right, you can see that the Vivo is falling apart quite quickly towards the edges. So again, the better optics we have again on the Huawei. It's not only more accurate in terms of colors, it is sharper, it is more detailed, and towards the edges it is like also wider and not getting so soft as the Vivo is. This shot is also very telling about the main camera sensor and what issues and gripes I have with the X Fold 5. It's a HDR shot for sure. Let's take a look, and you can see the over sharpened look again that we have here on the X Fold 5 in comparison to the Huawei. The Huawei again a little bit weaker in terms of HDR, but look at this fence, look at the moire effect, if it's even called moire effect. It has like different colors there, where on the Huawei it looks like it should look like. So yeah, very interesting fact. Yeah, HDR maybe slightly bit overblown there, not so much contrast added and so much sharpening added. But yes, this is where I would say I see an advantage of the Pura X for sure. And then when it comes to the telezoom, I'm quite surprised that the Pura X can keep up with the X Fold 5, at least at the main native camera zoom, so 3x versus 3.5x. It can keep up. It's a bit warmer for sure, but the detail levels here very comparable to each other, as you can see here. So there's not much of a difference between those two, besides the color difference, and also chromatic aberrations are the same, detail levels the same. As soon as you zoom in a little more, like 10x here for example, it becomes more evident that the X Fold 5 has a better sensor, larger sensor, and you can also clearly see it when I take another shot here with 5x and want to like show you the bokeh and a close-up shot. You can see how much more bokeh the X Fold 5 has, equals also to the larger sensor that we have for sure here. Which is on the Pura X way smaller. Also with the 8 megapixels, just upscaling to 12 megapixels, it cannot compete in terms of detail level here at all at 5x. So this is definitely a win for the X Fold 5. When we take a look at the portraits, we can clearly see a difference here. Much flatter look on the X Fold 5, where on the Pura X we have a much more contrasty look. Both utilize their tele sensors here. And the 85mm is a crop in from the 70mm on the X Fold 5, where we have a native zoom lens on the Pura X. And when we can take a look at the detail level, you can clearly see that the X Fold 5 looks much more natural, much brighter as well, a bit maybe over sharpened as well, very sharp indeed. Both are very good with the cutouts there for sure, so this is what I can tell you, but it's looking a little bit more natural on the Vivo X Fold 5. Zeiss Natural was used here, where the Huawei Pura X was used, I think, original or natural, or however they call it, the default profile there. And then we have the 2x zoom here on both. It's a crop in on the main camera sensor. Again, very flat look on the X Fold 5. I really prefer the one on the Pura X, a little bit more, giving us a little bit more contrast here on the face. And yeah, when we take a look at this here, again, sharpness level up to oblivion on the X Fold 5. No, it is like not overly cooked, I would say, but it's definitely a bit sharpened up, and it definitely a little bit like yeah, better on the Vivo for sure than on the Huawei, which is a bit soft for sure. And then we have the main camera sensor, which again at cropped into 35mm is showing a huge difference in outdoors capabilities, especially the HDR is overdoing it, is making everything a little bit darker and duller looking. However, it kept now the shadows in on the X Fold 5. But when I zoom in, don't be surprised, it is over sharpened like hell on the X Fold 5. You can clearly see it's like if you have the television set up to 100% in terms of sharpness, every person looks ugly. In this case, it looks like this is the case that we have here on the X Fold 5. I'm not sure if you would like such a photo. But the Pura X keeps it like soft as it was, maybe even a little bit softer than it was before. And yeah, in terms of like detail levels and so on, bokehs, yeah. I think both are looking fine, but yeah, the brighter picture, because it was sun outside. On the Vivo, you don't see it so much. On the Huawei, you can clearly see that the sun was shining on my face. I prefer the Huawei in this case, but yes, the X Fold 5 in general, I think in terms of portraits, is doing a better job. You can write down in the comment section which one you like better in terms of portraits, but also in all the other shots, outdoors at daylight. The Vivo X Fold 5's main video camera sensor here. And this one here, 4K 30 frames per second in the dark at night. There's no dedicated nighttime video. I was searching for it, I didn't find it. Walking towards the light here, standing right under the light, and now with the light in the background, how well is it working? And walking into the dark now and turning around just to see how well it's working now facing the light. So what do you think about this one here? Also using the internal mics on the X Fold 5. And now the Huawei Pura X video mode here, 4K 30 frames per second. There's no dedicated night mode either, at least in Harmonious Next. There's, I think, no other Harmonious version available for this, so it doesn't make any sense pointing that out. Standing under the light, yes, it's very yellow, this light, for sure. And what do you think? How well is it handling the flare? I think it has some flaring issues there. It's not the best in terms of flaring there, so I think the Vivo is definitely better in terms of flaring. But what do you think about this nighttime performance? We have a slightly smaller sensor here on the Huawei Pura X, but we have RYYB that might help a little bit with the performance at night. So what do you think about this one here facing the light, now standing in the dark? Which one is performing better? Also the internal mics, which one is performing better with the internal mic? Let's finish it off with the nighttime photos. We start off with the ultra wide angle, 16 versus 13mm wider field of view on the Huawei, a little bit brighter even on the Huawei, and when we take a look at the detail levels, you can clearly see also a little bit sharper. Yes, it is artificial sharpening on the Huawei for sure as well, but it is very, very soft on the Vivo here, and I really don't like the Vivo shot being too soft. The details are almost lost there. And this is something that also a bit too dark and dull looking, a bit overblown even. Both are a bit overblown there, both are not performing the best there, but I would give a slight edge here to the Huawei for the nighttime ultra wide angle. The main camera sensor is a way big difference here. The Huawei Pura X is like boosting the vibrancy to 100% or something like this. You can clearly see how much more vibrant the night looks like. The greens are extended, the yellows are extended, the blues and the pinks are extended. Where look at this here, it's like, okay, green, and here's red because it's like the red of the light and the reflection of the lights basically. But we can clearly see it's a win for the Pura X again when we take a look at this here in comparison to this here. So much over sharpened again on the X Fold 5 that it looks artificial, everything boosted, and the Huawei is also doing this, but it's much more subtle, much more natural looking there. It's not overcooking it. Yeah, the colors look a bit weird, but the detail levels is much nicer there on the Huawei, much more natural looking on the Huawei than the over sharpened mess that we have on the Vivo. Then when it comes to, yeah, there's no competition at all when it comes to the telezoom lens, because the X Fold 5 is beating the Huawei Pura X and running loops around it, because first of all the telesensor is not even used in the dark. I could not make it to use, only I think for the 10x zoom. You can clearly see it here at one point there. This is not even used. Is it 10? Yeah, I think here it is used, and here you can see they're much closer there together for the detail levels there. Selfie is quite interesting, a different win for the Huawei. You can see how it looks like here on the Vivo, like oil painting, and the Huawei is not super good here for sure, but it's way better looking than this oil painting that we have on the Vivo. So front-facing camera definitely win for the Huawei. I tried to photograph the moon as well at 350, which is like 15 times zoom. The X Fold 5 did not kick in for the moon, the Huawei also not, but when I zoomed in a little further here, 590mm, the Huawei kicked in the moon mode, and we have a nice moon where the Vivo did not. And I even tried it closer up, the moon mode did not kick in. Even with the landscape and moon mode, it did not kick in, which is a bit of a bummer and shame. So I couldn't make it to work there. So what do you think about the nighttime photos overall? I think the Huawei is a little bit better, except for the telezoom lens, which is definitely a win for the X Fold 5 at night times. The ranking on conclusion, TLDR, the Vivo X Fold 5 gets 4.308 points, and the Huawei Pura X gets 4.373 points. So we have a winner here, which is the Huawei Pura X. Where do we see the big differences? It's the main camera photo quality that is simply better. We have better optics that doesn't get unsharp towards the edges. We have better processing on the main camera because the Vivo X Fold 5 is just too much overdoing it with over sharpening. And then we also have a better ultra wide angle camera, even more better than the difference between the main camera photo quality. The ultra wide angle is wider on the Huawei, way wider. It is sharper. Yes, it is a bit over sharpened, but it's not like the same kind of over sharpness that we see on the main camera photo quality of the Vivo. And the Vivo is just narrow, it's soft, it lacks details. and on top of this is not very good also at night. Then quite interesting, but the zoom and portrait photo quality is a win for the Vivo for sure. It has just simply the better camera. Come on, we only have an 8 megapixel shooter there on the Huawei. Nevertheless, at its native focal length, it's doing quite a good job. It's just if you zoom in a little bit, then you'll notice that it's falling apart quite literally, because 8 megapixels, come on, they're already bumping it up to 12 megapixels. But if you zoom in and just crop in there more, it won't really help. So you don't get so much better in terms of quality there. When it comes to the portrait photo quality, I would also favor Vivo slightly here, but Huawei is doing still a great job, especially when it comes to colors, where Vivo is a bit failing. I wonder if you can fix it by disabling HDR. There are some rumors coming up. Maybe I will do an extra video, maybe on the base of the Vivo X200 Ultra instead of the Vivo X Fold, just to see if it offers some real benefits there. Video recording quality is also a win for the Huawei Pura X, but I had to literally raise it here 0.05 points because the Pura X telezoom is not that great. It cannot compete against the 4.5 ranked devices, but it is better than the Vivo X Fold 5. Clearly, main camera is a little bit better because, again, the Vivo is a bit artificially sharpened up there, and the Huawei keeps and maintains a very nice field of view and not so over sharpened look. Colors are also nice. The ultra-wide angle is also a bit better than the front-facing camera. Yeah, I know it's a front-facing camera that you probably don't need to use, but if you want to use it, it's garbage on the Vivo, and it is useful on the Huawei Pura X for sure. So this is a major win also for the Huawei there. Video recording quality is a slight difference. Both are doing a fine job. In terms of zoom, the Vivo is clearly better than the Huawei, but it's not so far off. So we have the Pura X here slightly better than the Vivo X Fold 5. Autofocus performance is on both is great, no issues at all. Front-facing camera, like I said, if you compare those here, the Huawei has a better front-facing camera than the Vivo. It is just more natural looking. The Vivo a little bit over-processed looking. The colors are sometimes really off, and the quality is not, so good. I'm quite impressed by the Huawei's front-facing camera. Camera UI, however, is a clear win for the Vivo. Vivo has the better camera UI, and on top of it also offers more features than the Huawei one. The Huawei, even like the camera UI is like, so if you want to set a timer, you have to go into settings and then set a timer there. There's no quick method of setting a timer, which is super inconvenient. We know that already from Huawei, and it's a bit of a shame that they did not update it even on the brand new Harmony OS Next version of the camera application. And the camera application is in terms of extra features even a little more limited than the Harmony OS 4.x version, but it might be also due to the form factor here, because for example, if you have it closed up, folded, and you're using just the outer screen, just like you see it here in the picture, then the Huawei only allows you to record video in 1080p, for example, which is a limit that totally not understandable in my opinion. It should be a switch where you can just turn it off, and some other things and nitpicks that are lacking, like for example the lack of Bluetooth audio recording, which is available on the Vivo, so only with Vivo headphones, but the Huawei does not even support it with their own headphones. A limitation maybe of the OS, because the OS is not capable of recording any sound from Bluetooth devices, which is like a bit of a weird kind of state. Nevertheless, let's check out the ranking list. So where does it end up? The Huawei Pura X gets the rank 22. You can see here amongst the Galaxy S23 Ultra and the Google Pixel 8 Pro. It's even ranked higher than the Pixel 8 Pro because of the better main camera sensor. Keep that in mind. This is like fantastic. However, the Pixel 8 Pro has the better ultra-wide angle and the better telezoom. Has almost roughly the same kind of video performance. I know that for sure the Pixel 8 Pro, when I checked it out, the changing of lenses during video recording was so abrupt, and there the Huawei is definitely way faster and smoother as well. Where the Huawei is also better is in terms of front-facing camera and in terms of extra features and so on. I think there the Huawei Pura X has a little bit more extra features still than the Pixel 8 Pro, for that matter. When we take a look at the X Fold 5, it is ranked between or sandwiched between the Honor 400 Pro and the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. So it's coming very, very close to a flagship from a few years ago, top flagship from Vivo from a few years ago. But you can clearly see that the whole or sole reason why it's so close is because the Vivo X90 Pro Plus had an even worse front-facing camera. And this is catapulting it down here on the rank 28 because it's not very great with this. If you just calculate it out, then the Vivo would be way up with probably all the others. Just a weak point is the ultra-wide angle. But the X Fold 5 also has a weak ultra-wide angle, so not much of a difference between those here. So yes, the Vivo X Fold 5 in terms of like foldable or flippable phones in general is on second position here, because number one is the Pura X here. I have many other phones that I did not test out, like the Oppo Find N5, for example, which is a nice foldable. Can barely imagine it being better than the X Fold 5 because it has a very weak 8 megapixel ultra wide angle. But yeah, we will see. I think for now the Huawei Pura X is the best foldable or flip phone that I saw so far. So this is like my conclusion out of this. What is your conclusion? What can you draw out of this comparison here? Write it on the comment section. That's everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Until the next time. Bye. And as everyone is always complaining about which software version did you run it on, this is the Vivo X Fold 5 software version there. I know Vivo is like almost like daily, not daily, but weekly releasing new software, but not for the X Fold 5. And on Harmony OS, Huawei's operating system is this here, 51128 SP6, as you see here. Yo.